Welcome everyone to another segment of Chief Speaks on Enlightenment and Transformation. I'm coming direct from you, from the Enlightenment and Transformation platform, which of course is a product of the Anu Nation. And I am Chief Yuya, representing the Anu Life Global Ministries, as well as the Sadulu House, and all of the many components that we share and we cultivate and we grow as a part of this movement of thought, concepts, and ideas that we call Anu Nation. And I just want to welcome all of you who are first-time listeners, because we seem to get new people pretty much every strong, or if not every day, maybe even. And I want to welcome you all, and especially those of you who are listening from archives, those of you who are listening live and to me right now, and those of you who've been listening the whole time, who've been riding with this experience and growing and changing. I want to just welcome you. And I also want to thank you all for the positive feedback that we receive, even some of the negative feedback as well. But just the feedback in general, I want to thank you all for that, because it's good to know that I know that the work is effective that we're doing, because nothing that's being done here is being done out of ego. So it's all being done, it's all being led by a greater knowing or a greater gnosis. So to have the confirmation in the material realm, where people are saying the information that's being delivered through these networks is actually changing my life, and we get feedback where we're told that it's changing the lives of entire families. So I want to thank you all for sharing that information. And it's not just about the ego stroke, but it's about knowing that we're all riding together. As I've told you all many times, that even though I am the chief of this movement, I'm still in the movement. I'm still on the road. And those of you who have joined, and joined sincerely, not just joined because it's the next thing to do, or you're stuck in your house for the winter, so you say, oh, I might as well get involved in whatever they're talking about until I move on to something else. But those of you who have sincerely joined and have committed yourself and are down for what it is that we're doing and what it is that we're presenting, you're all a part of this work. Believe it or not, you're all a part of this, in one way, shape, form, or another, because and that's what we're going to speak a little bit about today in this segment of Contradictions. But the perceptions and the ideas that we have about one another are what help to separate and abstract us from situations that or even systems that we don't want to be a part of. But I'll explain the stance, the Anu stance on that in a little bit later. But I also wanted to remind all of you who are in Anu Spiritual Training Phase 1 that we still have the Anu Spiritual Training Phase 1 Challenge going on. And for those who would like to contribute videos, testimony, or audio testimony, or written testimony, please bring it forth. Keep in mind that through the Anu Nation mobile app, that you can always give audio, or like I said, video, or even text feedback and testimonies. And in fact, I'll make sure that function is enabled, because for a while I had disabled it. So I'll make sure it's here. It's there by the time of this actual, I'll do it right now, really, by the time you all hear this. But so yeah, there's a lot of good things going on with the challenge, a lot of good things going on with Anu, and New Orleans looks like it's going to be the spot for the retreat. And I tell you honestly, I'll share a little inside information. I actually considered not doing the retreat. Speaking about contradictions, that's what this month is about. But there's been a lot of things going on in the background in terms of just some cleaning up that I've had to do in terms of the ministry and the systems behind the ministry, and who's doing what and who's not doing what. And that's a large part of community rearing and nation building. You have to know how to administer things, and you have to know who to put in certain positions and who not to. And like I've shared in other shows before, there's not a 7-day cycle that goes by that somebody does not flake out on something that they said they were going to do. And usually it's with very little explanation, because we live in those times now where there's really a lack of community, so people can just text, or email and say, I'm not doing this anymore, and just step off. And there's no ostracizing by the greater community, because they know, well, once I disappear, I'm out of here, So I've had to really sit back and lean back in my chair and take some walks and really decide on how I want to move forward in terms of the ministry, and in terms of even all the outreach and things that we're doing for the community. And I even had to reach out to some of my elders and just speak to them and, get some clarification on some things. So I was very glad that I did that. I was very glad that I did that. In fact, as I'm talking right now, it's so funny. I don't know if you guys just heard that. I just got a message from one of my elders about what we were talking, because we were even talking about it as early as last night. So very interesting. In the middle of me talking about it, they just messaged me. But yeah, that's the work. It's hard for you sometimes. It's hard for me sometimes. Believe it or not. The job of your instructor is to make it look easy. So through all the joking and the laughing and everything, I strive to make it look easy. But trust me, it's not easy working with people who are coming to you because of their personal dysfunction, and having to work with them through their dysfunction, but at the same time hold them accountable to sustain the very systems that they're eating off of and they're feeding off of. So when you have a person who comes and they need a lot of help, and you're working with them, and you say, okay, like I always say, help me to help you. So you say, okay, well, listen, this is what I need you to do. Keep this part held up, so that way I can keep all of this going, so I can keep helping you. And but at the same time, you're working with them through the dysfunction. It's a difficult task. It's a very difficult balancing act. And then oftentimes, once a person is made to feel uncomfortable, to their limit about whatever it is their issue is that they came in with through the door with, then a lot of times that's when they flake out. You'd be surprised. Many people just come into this kind of learning to feel good, but not necessarily to heal from all the things all the bad choices that they've made previously, and all the programming that was imposed upon them that really made them feel bad at a lower substrate level. And this is about the contradictions too, so everything that I'm saying is related to actually today's topic, which we're dealing with contradictions for this month of February. And what we're really trying to do in essence is cleanse ourselves of those contradictions, or at the very least, elucidate them, bring them to light, even if we can't really define and deal with them at the level we'd like to. At least for right now, it's good to have them brought to the light, so that way when we are moving and motivating around a community of people, we can be honest about our shortcomings. We can be honest about our challenges, because not only are we aware of them or have been made aware of them, but we're owning them and consistently pushing them into the light, as opposed to consistently pushing them into the darkness. So let's get into that. Like I said, anyway, before I move on to the message, it looks like we'll be motivating in New Orleans this year for the retreat, and I'll have some information up soon, as in terms of the planning and the cost and per person, and the dates and everything like that. But it will be the strong end of the solstice of June. June 20th solstice, just so you know. So it'll be that Friday through Sunday. I'll be down there prior because I always like to do the work on the solstice and things like that. But, the retreat will be that strong in. But there'll be more information forthcoming on that. But yeah, I just wanted to share that, like a little inside piece. There's a lot of deliberation and there's a lot of thought, planning, and rumination that just goes on behind the scenes with some of the things that you may experience that seem so small, like the time of a show, or even getting a show done, or again, a retreat, or what kind of reading services to provide, or who is going to speak when, and who is going to facilitate a call. There's so much effort that goes behind that, that it would almost shock you, the type of thinking you have to put behind it, especially again when you're working with a population of people who have been programmed to work against one another and to be counterproductive. And when they're good, their better sense arises within them, been programmed to be counterintuitive. So you're battling a lot of programming while at the same time attempting to build. It's a daunting task when you're doing it for real, when you're not just stroking egos and making people feel good and basically religiousizing them and giving them just a good feel up, then when you're doing it for real and doing it at a foundational level, like I said, when it's really, you're tapping into the substance of a person, then it gets difficult. And that's where you confront the idea of the contradiction. And, this exists not only just in building an organization, it exists in building a family. It also exists in building yourself as a person. So the ideas that we're speaking about and going to speak about, they transcend many different spaces, not just if you're trying to build an organization or develop a community or anything like that, because in effect, your family can be the same thing. You can be the same thing as well. And sometimes there are contradictory practices that we engage in. And because we're unaware of what a contradiction really is and the effect that it can have on us, we live with them with contentment. We seem to be very satisfied and very comfortable a lot of times being contradictory individuals, and especially when you live in a society where substance is not really acknowledged. Quality over substance, is really what's acknowledged the most in this society, as well as the ability to delude. That's a big thing here, being able to delude people, to trick people into thinking that you're something that you're really not, or you're about something that you're really not about. That's a part of the hallmark of American politics, or Western politics even, and Western psychology. But when I speak about the ambition of quality over substance, what I'm particularly speaking about is how we perceive the world and how we perceive the individual manifestations of the things that we have in the world. So for instance, you have a series of ideas that usually make up the character or the personality, or even the subjective perceptions that we have of things. So for instance, if I say, I'm just gonna look at something in front of me, something universal. Okay, I have some cherries here, right, in front of me. So when we look at a cherry, we can look at certain things about the cherry that help us to define the cherry. For one is, of course, its color. The red color of a cherry. Even cherry red is a color itself. Cherries even have a smell to them. Not only, aside from that, also they have a taste. They have a sweetness about them. But primarily, let's go back to the simple aspect. Cherries are red, right? So if we go through our whole list of the color of the cherry, the taste of the cherry, the feel of the cherry even, we start to notice that what we're doing is we're processing the cherry with our five senses, right? Now, the five senses reveal to us different qualities, and if we put the compendium of those qualities together, if we mesh them all together, then what it equates to is what we perceive to be a cherry. You see, so like how we use that phrase, if it walks like a duck, quack like a duck, it must be a duck, right? But not necessarily. So we have this thing that's a cherry, and it has all of the qualities that we perceive that a cherry would have. So therefore, we define it as a cherry. But in essence, it's only exhibiting the qualities that we've created in our mind that define what a cherry is. So through that, our perception changes and says, because we may be looking at a rock, but if the rock exhibits all of the qualities of the cherry in our mind, we will visualize a cherry. We'll create a contract that now we're looking at a cherry. We may be looking at something that was designed in a laboratory, but if they're able to exhibit and to create all of the qualities of that cherry, then we'll say, okay, this is a cherry. But what is the substance that lies beneath? Because the substance is the actual container of the qualities. So a cherry itself is not really a cherry. The cherry itself is the idea. What the actual thing is, which is typically usually nameless, because the moment we can name something, we can individuate it. But once we individualize that particular substance and we say, okay, well, this is a cherry, that's an apple, that's an orange, we've now already acknowledged that there can be more than one of that thing. That's the reason why we named it. Because there can be there, or that we've abstracted it from the greater gnosis, or abstracted it from the greater environment as its own thing. Even if there is only one thing, one of it could be one Mount Kilimanjaro, but we abstract Mount Kilimanjaro from Lake Titicaca, right? So we see that, okay, that this mountain is different from that lake. And we use these names to abstract things and to separate them one from another, right? And a lot of times we don't realize that what we're speaking about is the quality of a thing, which is helping us to define it in our mind. But the quality of a thing can only be experienced through, well, our sensation and our experience. It's through our reactions and our personal reflections and our sensations that we can determine what the quality of a thing is. And once we determine what that quality of that thing is, then we usually will put a name to it, or we'll group it with other things that share that same exact quality. Now, you see, this is how the contradictions sneak inside of our consciousness, you see, because all one has to do is to exhibit the same compendium of qualities that define something else in order for us to ascribe the same substance to that person. You see? But the key is, you got to always remember, just like your head is a container, or your Ori is a container for your destiny, your personality, your fate, and all the different qualities that you are. This idea of the person is also a container. And the truth is, once you realize the fluidity of the essence of what we are, because it's really a fluid thing. Once you realize that fluidity of the ether or the akasha, you realize that we have the potential to be anything inside of this container, because there are any qualities that we can display. So if I display, if I'm giving, and if I'm giving, if I'm kind, if I'm forthright, if I'm, and if I'm genuine, then one will look at those qualities and say, okay, well, this is a good person. This is a good man based on the qualities that I've exhibited. But if I'm really just a container with the potential to exhibit any quality that I feel like, then to define me as a good person and now place me in the group of the good people may be a dangerous thing, because at any moment I can decide to choose other qualities that exist inside of me or around me as well. And then what will my grouping be? Will you then put me in the bad people? Or can I exhibit both at the same time, now creating a confusion? You see? So that's a lot of times where our personal contradictions and our group contradictions come from. We're not looking at the substance that exists underneath the quality. We're only looking at the quality itself. You know, it's kind of like we say with American products, you get more bang for your buck. You know, so you could spend $6,000 or $7,000 less and get an American car as opposed to a foreign car. And the American car may be bigger. You know, the engine may be louder, the radio may be louder, the sunroof is bigger, so the seats are wider, you know, you got more leg room, but it's a piece of junk underneath it. You know, underneath it all, it's not built well. You know, the engine block is aluminum, you know, and it's just got a lot of, it doesn't have any metal on the body at all. You get hit in that thing, it's going to crumple up like a newspaper. You see, so, but we're looking at the qualities of, oh, but look at the paint job. Oh man, look at how the paint is shining. Listen to the radio, and oh, listen to the look at the sunroof. Oh, it's got the Bluetooth hookup already. Cool. You know, we're looking at all of these different qualities, and we're ascribing, looking at their qualities, saying, well, you know, the BMW or the Audi or the Benz has the same Bluetooth hookup and the same navigation, everything. So this is the same thing as me getting one of those vehicles without the price tag, without understanding the level of engineering that goes into creating a finer substance underneath those qualities. You know, and of course that's debatable because, you know, the reliability of German cars has always been a point of contention. But the point that I'm saying, you know, notwithstanding that example, is that it is the substance, which is usually the undefinable essence that exists beneath something, that we avoid often. And our summations of an individual, our summations of an experience, or just even in our trying to understand and relate to each other as individuals, we remove the substance aspect. So the same thing, like I said, if we look at a cherry or a pineapple or a mango, we define those fruits as such because of the qualities that they exhibit. But what exists underneath the qualities, because the qualities are only they exhibit those qualities, or we perceive those qualities based on our current ability to perceive what life is. So it's very subjective. So I may look at a cherry and see 5 qualities, and the next person may look at the cherry at a cherry and see 8 qualities, based on our ability of perception. So then, how many qualities does a thing actually have? In essence, you'll find out that it's infinite, because not only do you have the simple qualities that one could exhibit, but then if you combine them together, you get more complex qualities. You see? So the combination of them is what usually defines or separates that thing as what it is. But the substance of it itself is typically, like I said, it's unknowable, because the substance itself is what's motivating and pushing the qualities to have the effect that it has on our senses. So, but if we take all of the qualities away, what do we have? Do we have nothing, or do we have everything? You see, this is when you get into your understandings of more the metaphysical aspects of your Odus. You know, for instance, you have Eji Ogbe, just dealing with the first 2 Odu. Eji Ogbe, which pushes us towards infinity. You have Oyeku Meiji, that pushes us towards the void. So what is the difference between the infinity and the void? Well, the difference between white and black. The difference between male and female. There's really not much difference. At the end of the day, it's really not much difference between the infinity and the void, because they're both unknowable substance. And they may exhibit certain qualities in their movements towards infinity, or may exhibit certain qualities in their movements towards the void. But the qualities don't define the actual substance. So the things that we do and the things that are perceived about us don't actually define what we are. They may define in the moment who we are or who we are choosing to be, but they do not define what we are. So often when people come and they have problems in their lives, and they're so ashamed and feel so guilty about all of the choices that they've made, and all of the positions and situations that they've put themselves in, they're completely ignoring the substance that lives underneath the actual qualities of the choices that they've made in life. And the substance is unknowable, undefinable, and boundless. So you can choose at any moment to exhibit qualities other than what you have exhibited before in the past, without even having to make any immediate and apparent third dimensional changes. See, some people try to make changes like that through plastic surgery, or they try to make changes like that through changing what they consider to be their gender assignment, or their sexual preference. And a lot of times that can come from choices that they've made in life, or choices that were made for them in life. A lot of people you see who go overboard with the plastic surgery and go crazy, they have molestation in their past. So they still are feeling pain from things that may have happened to them as children, and they're trying to distance themselves as far as they can from that personality that they had when they were a child, that personality that was a victim, and that personality that was a victim is only a perceived and subjective quality. Some may see a victim, others may see a warrior. It's all based upon your perception. But again, the substance that lies beneath is what we should be tapping into more than the qualities. And when you're tapped into the qualities, or you're tapped into your things that are temporary, you're tapped into the 5-dimensional reality. When you're tapped into the substance that lies beneath, the core essential attributes, right? When you're striving to tap into that, you're tapping into something that is always in motion, always in movement, but really which determines and governs the contracts that you make with people. Because remember, it is the substance underneath that is pushing the reactions that each person is having based on your qualities. So for instance, you may exhibit the qualities of a kind person, but it's the substance underneath that decides if that actual quality is going to be pushed outwards into the universe or not. You see? So it's very similar to when you're working with the Ori and the Orisha. It is the Ori that will decide how far your Oshun will go, or how limited it will be, or how far your Ogun will go, how limited it will be, how far your Oya or your Eshu will go, or how limited it will be. You see? So it's just like your auric field. You may have an auric field that extends 1 inch from your body. You may have one that extends 6 inches from your body. You may have one that extends 20 to 30 feet from your body. People feel you when you just walking down the street, that you're getting ready to come down the street. You see? But it is the substance that exists within you, that vital core substance, that determines how far those qualities will project. You see? So sometimes we call that core intentions, but it's even deeper than a core intention. So I think I've used this example before when I spoke about a salesperson. Salesperson may smile on your face, call you by your first name, and talk about how excited they are to see you. But their core intention is just to make a sale. They really don't care anything about you. They just want to make that sale. You see? So when you're tapped into the substance that lives beneath the actual quality, you don't become mesmerized by the quality itself. You see, there's nothing, you don't lock yourself into that delusion state of being, where now the only thing that can move you is the reaction that your 5 senses will have. And if your 5 senses don't have a reaction, then you can't move. You can't feel anything. You find a lot of people do this even in relationships. They're unable to tap into the core essentials of another individual because they haven't tapped into their own, but they desire to feel that fire that sits at the seat of themselves. They desire to feel that intensity. So the only way that they can feel any type of intensity in a relationship is to create problems, to create drama. You see, so they'll create drama. They'll complain all the time. They'll whine all the time. They'll accuse the other person of things that, you know, don't make any sense. They'll just create a lot of tension, and through the tension, they're hoping that there'll be some explosion of intensity. And that's how they can feel themselves. That's how they can feel life. That's how they can feel the presence and the existence of the actual relationship. You see, because they haven't tapped into the substance that lives beneath the actual qualities that they're looking for. The qualities are not important. If you tap into the substance, then you only need a little subtle hint of the actual quality. It's almost similar to like when you could look at it like with using good ingredients in your rituals, or just using good ingredients, period. Let's say even in your cooking, which is a form of ritual. When you use good ingredients, you ever notice you don't have to use as much? You know, like I haven't used regular salt, but chemical salt in a long time. So, but I do kind of remember how it tastes. And I know it's got a real hard taste. I mean, when I use salt, I'm typically using pink salt, sea salt. If that, I tend not to use it too much, but I know I don't need as much of that stuff. You know, or things start tasting like they're brined to me. You know, but sometimes you go to a restaurant or something, you see people with the salt shaker. They're there for, 5 minutes shaking the salt over the food because it's not quality food. You know, some food even you have to eat when it's piping hot. Meat is a food like that. When you eat it cold, you notice it doesn't really have much taste to it. You know, well, let's say meat that's not really good quality meat. So even with like your colognes or perfumes, essential oils, you notice when you get the good stuff, you don't need as much of it because there's a vital substance and energy that's living inside of it already, that's already pushing the core essence of the quality that you want to perceive in it. So it doesn't need so much of that. You know, picture it like the core essence is a balloon. It's the air inside of the balloon. And the quality is the actual color of the balloon. You see? So the more of the substance that exists within something, the more brawny that is, the more cultivated the substance is, the more you'll see of that red balloon or of that yellow balloon or of that blue balloon. So it's the core substance that makes the most difference. And when there is a divide between the two of them, you have a contradiction. When we're focused on quality and not the substance of something, then now you have a contradictory state. You see, and you can apply that again to so many different things, not only in family building, but you can apply it to even some of the things that we've spoken about, that we've seen within the conscious collectives, where you're seeing people who are bragging about the qualities that they exhibit. Because the truth is, you can't actually brag about substance because substance is undefinable. Who brags about their ori? Who brags about their soul aside from an insane person? You see, so the only thing you would actually be able to do to prove your point in terms of your substance is to show it, to see the effect that your substance and your core vital being and your core essence can have on people around you and on the life that you live, how it blooms and blossoms in your own life. Now, if that hasn't been cultivated, hasn't been tapped to, and hasn't been acknowledged, then nothing really grows or blooms inside of your life. What you have to do is keep striving and holding on to the deflated balloon of empty and hollow qualities, because you can only fake for so long. That's why they say fake it until you make it. Once you make it, stop faking it. But you can only fake it for so long. So it's the undefinable, it's the unknowable. In many senses, it's the untouchable, which that's one of the things that makes our journey through the world so hard sometimes, because it's the undefinable, untouchable, and unknowable that becomes the most important aspect. So it's not so easily and readily acceptable as smiling when you see someone, or a firm handshake, or not stealing someone's money, or all of the different qualities that we may look at and say, oh, this is what makes a good person. You see, it's the untouchable that can make you either good or bad, and there's no contradiction in that. because your good and bad are subjective qualities. They're not nearly as important as one might think. They're not nearly as important, your good and bad qualities. What's more important is the consistency of your essence. And the only way your essence is going to be consistent to those of us outside of you is through the perception and the experience and the reaction that essence has on us, and the reaction that you have based on that essence. Because in truth, remember, the essence is always consistent anyway. You can't mess up your soul. You can only deflate some of the energy that you invest in the reflection of it. The soul doesn't even exist on this plane, so that's why it's not touchable. You can't really mess with it. The only thing that exists on this plane is a reflection of the soul. So again, it's still a perception. It's still in some degrees, for people outside of yourself, it's still a subjective perception, because the actual soul doesn't have to touch the planet. It's that powerful. Just like a star doesn't have to touch the planet for its reflection to be seen and even felt. Just like the planets don't have to touch this planet for us to feel the effect of those planets. You see? So contradictions abound a lot of times because of our unwillingness to move beyond the qualities that we think will have the greatest effect on the populace. And when our investment is strictly there, and usually that's an ego pursuit. We want people to see us a certain way. We want to be perceived a certain way. And when we don't get that recognition, then we have a problem. Then we get upset. Then we start beating and pounding our chest and, telling everyone how great we are, when we never really should have to do that. So again, I'm speaking about just the clearing and the cleansings that we might want to consider looking at in this month. And essentially what I'm speaking about is our integrity. Because remember, and I did a segment on integrity that you can go check out. Just search my name in integrity, because I don't remember what channel it's on. But our integral structure, right? Our integral structure, that which is unchanging, that which is unmoving, becomes the greater and more important investment than the actual qualities that we aspire towards, or the actual qualities that we seek and wish to exhibit. In fact, our Ori holds all of the qualities that we really need for our destiny and our purpose. It may not be qualities or attributes that the world may see as being very valuable, or the world may even see as being desirous. And we can always manipulate the qualities that we want in the moment to have the desirous effects on those who are witnessing our presence. But ultimately, again, this world is not about stacking up qualities or points. Okay, our existence to this world is tapping into the unknown substrate that we call the reflection of our soul or our essence, in order to gain the questions that it has of us, so then we can explore the answers. That's it. It's much more simple than one might imagine. The complexities only come in again when we start to stack up the formulas of the different qualities that we seek to have. Well, in order to be a priest, I have to be loving, I got to be caring, I have to be altruistic, I have to be patient. You start to add all of these different complexities of qualities, and that may not necessarily be so. There's a good example. You look at a young man. His name is Caleb McLaughlin, and he's the young man. If anyone have ever had an opportunity to watch the show Stranger Things, it's on Netflix. And Stranger Things is it's like a sci-fi show, but it's like a 80s throwback, so it's a nostalgic piece. But Caleb McLaughlin is the young brother who plays Lucas in the show, Lucas Sinclair. And in fact, you might have recognized him, those of you who checked out the New Edition story, because he also played Ricky Bell in the New Edition story. And what you'll find is that in each representation, he played the Ranger. And again, I've done the breakdown before on why I did the 4 archetypes, but I know I also tapped into the energy of some of the other vibrations, like the Ranger and the Thief and stuff like that. But you know, ultimately the Ranger is the one who usually acts alone, comes up with a plan, follows through on the plan, pushes everybody forward, acts alone. Again, if you watch like the old Dungeons and Dragons cartoons, you see Hank. Hank was the Ranger, and Hank, he always had the plan. He always had to come up with a plan. You know, so even when you watch the New Edition story, you see Ricky Bell in the beginning. He's the one that really had the desire to make the group pop. You know, so you find consistently, you see this young man, Caleb McLaughlin, who was also in The Lion King as well, by the way. I believe that's where he got his start. But you see him consistently playing this character of the Ranger. Now, is that because of the qualities that he desires and wishes for the world to see, or is that germane to his actual purpose in life, him as an individual? Sometimes it's important to look at those things. The manifestations sometimes are so simple and so monastic that we miss them, because we're looking for this complexity of whole individual as we perceive what a whole individual should be. And one of the greatest and most wholesome things one could do is to be of one mind and one purpose. You see, and even though the essence that exists within you has the ability to manipulate millions or billions, even trillions of qualities that exist, you know, on this plane and beyond, it really doesn't need to. Like, do I need to be a comedian? No. Do I need to be a fighter? Not necessarily. You know, do I need to be a lover? No, not necessarily. We can go through a list. You can ask yourself these questions, you know. And of course, when we hear certain words, again, there's a somatic reaction. When you hear warrior, when you hear king, when you hear queen, it's like, yeah, that's me. But that's a part of the more elementary childlike attachments that we place upon different qualities that really have nothing to do with anything. That's a part of the contradiction. Like we say, well, I'm a king. Says who? How do you just jump up one day and say you're king? Well, it's a little childish if you think about it. It's like me jumping up and saying I'm a superhero. And then of course one could say, well, if you believe that in your mind, well, isn't that how we talk to a 5-year-old or a 4-year-old? We don't really talk to adults that way. You know, if an adult says, well, I'm a superhero, we might say, well, let me see your superpower. You know, and well, why do I got to show you my superpower? I just told you I'm a superhero. You know, we really maintain these really immature perceptions of ourselves, which keep us locked in, and it's because of the effect that we want to have on the world. And often it's an unnecessary effect, because if it has nothing to do with your underlying essence, the effect is very temporary. It's very, very, very temporary. You know, despite what you want to call yourself, you know, king, father this, queen, mother that, despite your names and your titles that you place upon yourself, it's all temporary. One of my elders told me that many years ago, and he was very, very vain. Well, he still is. I mean, he's transitioned to the ancestral realm, but he was a very, very, very famous person. He was a musician and a singer and a poet, but he would always kind of instill that in me when I would kind of be, I guess he could sense the awe that I would have sometimes when I saw how, when we were places, how people would receive him, and the effect that he had on people's lives. And you know, your elder, especially your babas, those who are really, really, because this was one of my baba, not just baba, I say as a title of respect, but really like my father. And, so they can sense you, especially when they've known you from young and have raised you up in a certain way. They sense what you're thinking, what you're feeling. And he would say, he always called me young blood. He said, young blood, that's temporary. That's how he talked. Young blood, is temporary. That's temporary. I remember when I met, because I shared before, I met Muhammad Ali twice. I shared the first time. I never told about the second time. But the second time was actually at an event, and he was being honored. And long story short, I went up to him and I shook his hand, and I did like real quick, because it was like he was in movement. I said, I met you before, but I didn't really want to make a big thing about it. And he paused at me. It was just kind of interesting, because what he did the first time I met him when I was a little boy. But he said, yeah, they're saying all these good things about me. And I said, yeah, that's right. And then he leaned in on me. He grabbed me by my shoulder. He said, but I'm still a nigga. Then walked off. So I don't think I ever shared that story. That was some years back. That was some years ago. But someone aware of their consistencies and their underlying substance understands that despite the qualities that you want to ascribe to this person, they're aware of your core intention and your core perception. But they're also aware, he was aware of his internal, what I'm really here to do. So regardless of what you guys are saying about me, it really has very little to do with what I actually came here to do, which in fact, he already did. I did it. All right. So that has been our Chief Speaks. I know I went about 15 to 16 minutes over time. Like I said, I'm trying to maintain my 30-minute mark. And, we did it last strong. We'll get back to it. And I know I've already gotten some of the pouts on it, but it is what it is. All right. But yeah, anyway, so like I said, the retreat will be in New Orleans this year in June. And we're going to be doing things much different going forward. And like I said, praise Ra for our elders, man. Good checks and balances. And even some of my brotherhood as well. Some of the brothers I get to tap into. And I don't have anybody, elder or brother, who understands the full scope of my mission, or even involved in the full scope of my mission. But sometimes you can find, sometimes you have to kind of like mix and match, your elders sometimes based on the different qualities and the know-how that they have. I have some elders who were prolific business people, and I can ask them certain kinds of questions that are maybe not even pertaining to business, but just human resources and organization. And then I have others who were bishops in churches, or are bishops in church, old bishops, and they can tell me, they were able, like one I spoke to recently, he was able to share some information with me just about human nature. And just some of the thing, and everything he was saying was spot on, just some of the problems you come up against when you're building something and you got certain kinds of people involved, and what people want. I'm trying, I don't want to call anybody out or anything like that, but just the things that people want sometimes, and sometimes what their real intentions are, and things like that. And what happens once they get their intention fulfilled versus when they don't get it fulfilled, and all of that. And so it's good when you're able to kind of see, again, underneath the quality of the robes or the titles, and see the essence living underneath all of that, and tap into that. then you realize that there's very little, like I said, very little distinction or separation other than what we perceive it to be for our own purposes of abstraction. So that way we can individualize and define things in its own space and define phenomenon in its own space. But in essence, if the substance that exists within is the same, if the substance that holds the container of a mountain is the same thing as the substance that holds the container of a cherry, or the qualities of a cherry, then in fact we're looking at the same thing. When we're looking at a mountain, a cherry, a tree, a mango, you know, a pair of headphones, in effect we're looking at the same thing, playing illusionary tricks of various qualities, but we're actually all looking at the same thing, because underneath them, the containers that hold those qualities are all made of the same exact substance. Anyway, that's kind of another conversation. But thank you for tuning in to Chief Speaks. And again, I urge you all, if you are not a member of the I Knew Spiritual Training, to join up. And just also a quick heads up, I'm doing some major changes with the Sadulu House website. So some of you may have noticed that the I Knew Spiritual Training looks different than how it looked before, because we have been upgrading our software, upgrading and changing and doing new rollouts of different software. Some of the classes look a little bit different and things. It's the same material. Actually, it's going to be more material than it was before, because our new software allows us more capabilities. But things have changed a bit, and it should also fix some of the issues that some have had in terms of accessing their classes and things like that. So those issues should be gone, you know, moving forward. And we should be done with the rollout completely around March, because we're doing it in steps to ensure there's no catastrophes, you know, so we're doing a slow rollout of the software. All right. So make sure you tune in tomorrow, Monday, 7 a.m. For the community dawning devotional. And then, of course, 8 p.m. you all have the women's call. All right. So until such time, it's Chief Yuya.